Okay. Are we recording? We are recording. Hello, Adam. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, it's good to be on, Lewis.
So, for those of you that don't know Adam, and you can't tell because he's just sat behind the screen, Adam, I think, is the tallest person that I know. He's the definition of a BFG. I see you as like the BFG. You are
Hmm.
one of the nicest guys that I know, but also, yeah, an absolute monster when it comes to some of the athletic things that you do, which we're going to go through. I really wanted to get you on because obviously I am pretty much just leading into talking to coaches about coaching for coaches. That's the angle that I'm going down now. A massive part of that, and admittedly something that wasn't a particularly huge part of my coaching service, is exercise, training, programming, and all of that good sort of stuff. I never really I never really got into it that much because when my coaching business was at its peak, I actually couldn't train. So
Mm.
I don't know if that kind of like sucked the passion out from me, but obviously most people, I would imagine listening to this, will do some sort of programming for the clients. But before we get into that, talk to me about your entry into fitness and coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I was basically, I think when I was 18, I played a lot of basketball from about the age of 12.
No
Being
surprises, no
very tall
surprises
was an
there.
advantage. When you're taller than your teachers going into secondary school, you kind of get picked up by the basketball coach pretty quickly. But I was really tall, but built like a pipe cleaner. I was incredibly skinny. So I think I must have been about 17 when I kind of got introduced to the weight room and tried to put on some weight and put on some muscle pretty quickly. It was almost like my body was just kind of crying out for it. And yes, I would say there was some performance increases. So there was like the validation outside of the weight room. But I'm quite introverted anyway. Didn't get much attention from the ladies, being a really tall pipe cleaner. And then I started lifting weights and I started getting some attention. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And nothing will keep you going in the weight room faster than getting attention from the opposite sex.
Especially at that age. Yeah, especially at that age.
Exactly. At 17, 18, like it was a perfect time. And I did PE at school in terms of like GCSE and had a really good and influential sports science teacher at college. And it just made me realize like this is the avenue I want to go down, whether that's a degree base. I started my degree and then realized like the personal training, the vocational side of it was really where I wanted to be at. And I think 2002 was when I qualified as a personal trainer and pretty much been doing it ever since. But for me, it was just the impact it had on my life, my self confidence. That just kind of that was the avenue I wanted to go down.
What degree did you start?
Sports science.
So at what point did you start to, because again, like there's people out there that are definitely passionate about training and personal training and training themselves and all that sort of stuff, but I see there's two people that I know actually know. You're one of the two that I see as absolute like wizards, and the other is, I'm not sure if you know him, Greg Slater, the other again another wizard when it comes to programming, because you have obviously at some point taken that passion and that knowledge to the next level, even stepping away from university. So when did you realize how much you loved the exercise side of things?
So I was always in the gym. When I wasn't playing basketball, I was also lifting a lot. But when I was doing my degree, I could always sit down, and whether I was massively passionate about the subject that we were working on, I could sit down and I could knock out the assessment or the assignment. Yeah. And I sat down to go through, I think it was a nutrition assignment. And I was just like, I can't even fake enthusiasm for this. And so because my passion for the lifting side of things, the strength training, all of that, it got so much, like the other avenues, I couldn't even fake my enthusiasm even to get a degree for it. So I was just, I'll leave that there. And I think I took what was that? I think that was my second year. So I took my final student loan payment and bought my personal training course. And use that basically. So I didn't go back to uni, but I waited till the payment came in and used it for the personal training course. But I knew at that point, I mean, I'm quite impulsive anyway, but I knew that all these other avenues that come with sports science, it's the training side I'm interested in.
But 2002, so I'm 12 years old at this time. So like that's way before even the internet as we know it now, right?
Yep.
So way before any of this ability to go out and further your own knowledge online and all that sort of YouTube and courses and whatever else. So straight into personal training after your second year of university. What's the next kind of like, let's say, I don't know, 10 years look like?
Yeah. So I was very lucky that as soon as I got my personal training course, I was able to get a job at the gym around the corner for me. And I worked, whether it's a gym instructor, teaching classes, personal training. I think I did that for about 18 months. And then thinking I'm Billy Big Bollocks, I went, right, I'm going to go self-employed at a different gym. I'm going to make a mint. It's going to be awesome. So I left. So I came back to the gym. I think maybe I was there 3 or 4 months and realized like, I'm not ready for this. I'm still in early 20s. Came back. I just messaged my boss and was like, hey, cool. How's things doing? Got any jobs for me? And I think within a week I was back working there. From there, and it's why when I taught the personal training course, I taught it for 6 years. I would always tell students, like, they would come in ideas of grandeur of this, like, yeah, I'm going to be training celebrities. I'm going to be training professional athletes. I'm like, well, unless you know them personally, you're not getting them. My vision for you is that you spend at least 18 months to 3 years being paid to do the job. Like, build a toolbox, learn your skill set, understand how to train people, and then worry about running a business. So obviously I went back, was personal training back at the gym that I was at. And then I realized I needed to get a proper job for a period of time to get a mortgage. So I stepped aside and went to work in the prison service. And then for those 5 years while I was in the prison service was when I was starting to do more strength and conditioning stuff. I had a friend of mine, many people don't know about the prison service stuff, but when a buddy of mine sent me a video from Joe DeFranco's gym. This is going back 2007 time. Had drowning pool bodies as the track in the background. There was lots of stuff I'd never seen, like proper strength and conditioning, crazy stuff.
I've seen this video.
Yeah, it's amazing. Most people that have been around at that time have seen that video. And for me, then I was like, okay, I need to know more about this. So I was in the prison service, but I was spending my time doing strength and conditioning stuff, just compiling more and more courses and stuff. And then after 5 years in the prison service, realized this is what I love doing. I'm using all my holidays and all my pay to go and do these courses. And there's a theme. So I used my final paycheck from the prison service and I went over to New Jersey and I went to DeFranco's gym and I learned from DeFranco. And from then I never looked back. I went straight back into that. I came back into running my own business, and that's probably that first 10 years. But yeah, DeFranco was like one of the first strength coaches that took advantage of YouTube. He even says now that if he was around now, he'd just be crushing YouTube because they had so many freaks in that gym. And for me, that was it. I went and got a proper job and then realized like, this is still what I want to do. I can fake prison service, very, very secure job, fairly well paid for what it was. But it wasn't what I loved doing. So I was just off in 2012 and back to doing personal training.
Got the mortgage, signed the papers, ticked the boxes, and then was like, right, I'm done now. I get it, mate. Yeah, the DeFranco stuff. So when I first started to like really fall in love with training, it was only ever to supplement American football. I was never one of those people that was like in the gym to look better because I had, I was 100 and maybe 30 kilos at this point and on my way up, like no idea about looking good at all. And we found a gym in Stockport called Strength and Performance, run by two guys called Sean and Z. They'd just done the same kind of like trip to Mecca as you, I guess, gone over, trained there, learned, came back, opened this like dirty gym with chains and boards and all of this sledgehammers and stuff like that. And I'm like, sign me fucking absolutely. And I spent quite a bit of time there, like training like that to supplement American football. And I think, again, that's one of the things that helped me fall in love with training was it not being typical bodybuilding training. I was like, maybe I got this weird attachment that I'd made myself to you train in the gym and you lift weights, you're a bodybuilder, you're a wanker. Like I'd never liked that sort of thing. how hard did you have to fight yourself to not then try and program chains and bans for every person that you came across?
I mean, most of the clients I was working with were training with me, and the one thing that set me apart, I was in a commercial gym, but I roll up with bands, with chains, but again, I was training predominantly females, but I was training them in a way that most females weren't getting trained. They were getting trained to be athletic, to be strong. And that was DeFranco's influence. Now, I wasn't loading chains and stuff onto the bars and stuff like they were, because they were heavily West Side barbell influenced. But I would use battle ropes. I would use these different things. I would, sled pushes. And I think it helped me get noticed, because compared to what everyone else was doing in that gym, which was kind of bodybuilding, toning, if you will, as well, like there were these girls just crushing weights, getting strong, doing box jumps, and it got people interested. And I mean, right or wrong, whether people want to say you should offer a free session, I offered anyone a free 30-minute session, but because I was doing stuff that was so different, people were jumping at it. And I think because I was influenced by DeFranco and I knew how I could apply it in a general population setting, it got me noticed because no one else was doing it.
And I'm guessing, so when's this in terms of I'm guessing there's nothing else like especially in a commercial gym.
No, it's just 2012 in Basingstoke, which isn't a big town with crazy stuff going on in there. And there's me with chains and bands and trying to help women get chin ups. And
there's a 6 foot. I'm not even sure 6 foot. There's a 6 foot a million guy walking around.
There's this new guy that's come in. He's doing this weird stuff, and he's actually got women strength training, which was fairly uncommon in the gym at the time. But for me, it was DeFranco gave me a system, and again, it was his West Side for skinny bastards kind of approach, which was like a heavy, what they called a maximal strength upper body day, maximal strength lower body day. He had like a dynamic lower body day rather than the speed work that West Side Barbell would do. So that was like jumps and throws and stuff like that, where you could be powerful, and then like a hypertrophy upper body day. Now, I didn't see all my clients on 4 days a week, but I was able to kind of take the principles that he was giving and using it. And some clients I did see more, so I was able to do that. But it was very different. But DeFranco gave me a structure to go into that gym and did it. The reason I failed, or one of the reasons I failed when I was personal training the first time, is I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really have a structure or rhyme and reason to do stuff. It was just like, I know these exercises and here's these sets and reps and let's go train. And right or wrong, DeFranco's stuff, which was originally for American footballers, it gave me a structure. It gave me okay, you're going to start with, a jump, then usually like some form of squat variation, and then like some glute ham work, and then maybe some conditioning. Like it actually gave me something to work with. It gave me a recipe.
I had the program. I did that, and then I also had, is it Juggernaut? There was like Juggernaut strength systems or something like that. I rotated through both of those for a while. Again, without knowing any of it, just doing what it said. It was fucking sick. I loved it because again, it wasn't just going leg day, going upper body day. It was much more. Much kept it interesting for somebody that again at the time had no interest in training whatsoever, apart from how good it would make me at my sport. Yeah. So, you mentioned something there. So, at what point did you then start transitioning into teaching the personal training course, and how did that come about?
So they taught the course at the gym I was training at, and I think I'd maybe been there 6 months to a year, and the guy that was running the course saw how I was coaching clients, and they said, hey, would you like to come along and help us? Initially, it was just helping the practical sessions. So helping the students understand how to coach an exercise, watching them, and then we would assess them at the end of the course. And then probably after about 18 months of that, he pretty much handed over the level 3. So he taught the level 2 fitness instruction, and then he gave the level 3 stuff over to me. And he let me teach all the programming side of things. He was very good in the sense that he let me teach what they needed to know, because we would have, and this is probably pulling the curtain back on personal training courses a little bit. Each institute is given a syllabus. It's like, this is what you teach. The reality is that every year that syllabus gets smaller, and they want you to teach a little bit less because they want people coming through faster. We never did that. We stuck with the same syllabus, the same slides, everything else. We didn't want to shortchange the students. However, what Mark let me do was, from a programming aspect and some of the others, he would let me teach them what was up to date and correct. As long as I was like, okay, this is, you're probably going to get assessed on this. Here's what you're going to do in the real world. And here's why this doesn't work. Like the stuff that was shown, because a lot of it was inaccurate. And it's like this, and I would highlight to them, like, this is like, and they could see, okay, this doesn't make sense to do this, but this is how you can do it. This is how it's done better applied. The same principle, but done the right way. He was very good, and he let me teach that way. And, we was the personal training course, they were supposed to write a 2-phase progressive program. That's what it got bastard down to. Initially, it was a 4-phase program, but they wanted to make the assessment easier. We still made them do. Sorry, students, I've taught in the past. We made you do 4 phases when you only needed to do 2 to pass.
It'd be interesting to know what the stats are on the people that were doing the shortened, cut down version compared to the people that you were putting through what you were teaching. I had Luke Johnson on in the last season of this, who ended up opening PTC PT Collective, and he said very similar. Is that a lot of it? Well, it's like anything, right? A lot of it was teaching people how to pass the test rather than teaching people. So that's what they did with PT Collective. Again, they added smaller elements of like the actual business side of it and the communication and the shit that you need to know, sprinkled in with the stuff that this is what they say that you need to know. But yeah, it'd be really fascinating to see what those stats are like, because again, we've all heard the stats of whatever it is, like 70% of personal trainers don't make it out of year one. I don't know if that's the exact stat, but it'd be interesting to see if the people that you'd put through the ringer survive longer than the people that had just been given the basics.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the feedback that I've had, and I'm still in contact with a lot of the students, I still train some of them, was that they're incredibly grateful to how we taught them, because they now realize, meeting and talking to other personal trainers, they had a big advantage when they left or when they finished the course. And I think, I mean, I've got a lot of things to vent about when it comes to people not doing courses after they've done their personal training course. But there's,
this is the platform. Go. This is.
I'll touch that in a minute. But the better thing, the better way, when they come out with a harder course, it bridges the next level much easier. If you come out with a real simple course, you go to a course, you're going to feel stupid. If you go to a course and like this, you're missing gaps in information. But it's not helping you run a business. Like, if you want to go self-employed and we've not given you the tools to do that, like, how can you best help clients get results? They're not going to keep coming back if you've got this limited information. Yeah. But it annoys the shit out of me with people think, and again, I came from an age whereby there wasn't really internet, so it makes me sound really old. I'll get some messages sometimes of like, what can I be doing to improve my education? I'm watching YouTube, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm on Instagram. It's like, how about going on a course? Yeah. And I think Luke Worthington and I had a backwards forward. So Luke's like the most in-demand coach in London. His client roster is a who of A-list celebrities like Forrest Whitaker and Idris Elba and all sorts of people. And he and I were going backwards and forwards. It's like, people will pay £1,500 to do a course on social media. They won't pay £500 to go and do a course and get better at programming. Yeah. And it's, I get it, like, social media is such a huge thing, but like, most people now don't really expand beyond their actual personal training course.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, if you've got a limited amount of money and you see people doing well on social media, you're probably going to put your money there. But there's a point whereby, like, you're not upskilling yourself. Sure, you can read books and you can find stuff out on the internet. There's something to be said for actually investing money in a course, actually having to get through something, get qualified in something, rather than just, okay, well, I just listen to podcasts from this popular person and I collect information that way. There's something to be said for actually having to sit and do an exam to learn, to actually spend 6 months on. So I think that the precision nutrition stuff is great. And like, 6 months to a year is what it takes most people to kind of go through their stuff. But we're in an age of quick fixes and, we can't delay validation. We need stuff immediately. And we have so much access to information that it's really easy for us to go, you feel like you're doing stuff. I'm watching podcasts, I'm looking on Instagram, I'm collecting all this information, I'm doing stuff.
Yeah.
So, but are you really, compared to spending £1,000 on a course that's going to help you, or traveling? I mean, I've been to the US. I've lost track how many times I've gone now to do a course or just to go to a conference. But most people now won't even travel.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. To be fair, I've put a reel out today about this very thing, coincidentally, about there's a massive difference between collecting the information to the point where you're reading a book or listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video and being taught the information to the stage where you understand it enough to teach somebody else. Because that's what coaching, that's a massive element of coaching. It's, you need to know it to the level where if you then get questioned on whatever it is, programming, nutrition, anything, if your clients ask you a question, you at least, you should know, or you need to be able to say, I'm not sure, but I'll go and find out. Like, I think there's an element of that. And then adding to the point that you said about people seeing people do at the age of social media and stuff like that. I've had this conversation a few times on this podcast, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it. It's even, things have been exacerbated even further by now people can also spend money with business mentors to learn how to make more money. And I see it and I get it. I don't agree with it, but I do get it. Like you said, if somebody's newly qualified and they've got 500 quid, a grand, 1,500 quid in the pocket, where am I going to spend it? I'm going to teach you how to get 100,000 followers. I'm going to teach you how to do the job that you're meant to be able to do, or I'm going to teach you how to make 10 grand. Like, it's almost like, I get it. Like, I get it, but I just want to like shake people and be like, you can only sell shit once. You've got to get good at the job.
Yeah. I mean, I think, so the first business group I ever went into, I'm trying to think when that was, 2017, 2018. All of us in the group, and it was a very, very small group. We'd all been coaches a long time. And Andy said to us, like, none of you here need any more information.
Yeah.
You need a business plan. You need to be able to structure a business and be able to get after it. Like, collecting more courses right now doesn't help you.
Yeah.
And I think the flip side is also true. Obviously, we work with Paul Moore, and I mean, I don't know how many fairly new trainers and stuff. There's a lot of people transition into new industries and stuff in Paul's group. But you could say that, like, if someone came in fresh from a personal training course, they probably, my opinion would be, they probably need more time upskilling before they can really maximize what Paul would give them. He's going to help them in a host of different ways, and they can probably still upskill at the same time. But you kind of go, if you've got an option, a better skill set in the job that you're doing is probably going to help you more initially. And, then you can look at, once you've got to a level, how do I then go and turn this into making money?
Yeah, I agree. So for anybody that's obviously listening to that and going and thinking maybe I, or listening or watching, should I say, this goes on YouTube now. I'm in the 21st century, mate. It goes on YouTube as well. But listening or watching and thinking, yeah, actually that kind of like rings a bell. For me, I didn't even know where to start looking. I did that. I obviously got started and then continued because of the situation that I was in. And I wasn't running my own business at the time. I was able to continue upskilling, and I just landed on Muscle Nerds on Luke Lehman because he's a geek and I love his shit. So I just absorbed everything that he did. But where would you, with your knowledge now, where would you signpost people to go if they do want to continue to upskill in the actual job side of things, the coaching side of things?
So I think, and I hate to say, like, people like figuring out their avatar, but like, figure out who you want to work with, not necessarily like super specific. Because at least then you can start going, okay, well, do I need strength conditioning, or do I just need like a good amount of programming for general population? If you're looking at nutrition standpoint, like precision nutrition, Amelia's course is fantastic. There's a few others that you can go, okay, that is probably going to be more beneficial for general population than going down the route of sports nutrition.
Yeah.
So I think initially having an understanding of who, and I mentor some coaches, and if they're looking at courses, I'm like, well, where's the deficit in your skill set with who you currently work with, and go and attack that. if there's no deficit, it's just like, I had a conversation with Michelle Boland, who's a coach in Boston, and like we kind of agreed that out of 3 courses in a year, 2 might help our clients, and one's just for like personal. Just like I'm getting a thrill out of doing it, and it's just going to keep me interested. So I think in many ways you have to look at like, well, who am I trying to help? If you're brand new to the industry, finding something that's going to give you clear structure to be able to do programming. So, like a Muscle Nerds, I would have said my buddies were doing strength faction, but they don't do strength faction anymore. So something along those lines whereby, okay, I can get a really good introduction here to programming. And then something that if you want to do with nutrition, something like Amelia's, is it EIQ? Or precision nutrition, something along those lines where it's highly applicable to general population, because that's who most people are going to be working with. And I think if you can cover those 2 bases, and then you have to roll it out. You actually have to go and do it with clients. To then find, okay, well, where's the deficit now? You know, if I'm working with nutrition clients and I've got all this knowledge and information from precision nutrition or EIQ, where is it now lacking? After a year to 18 months, where am I still going? I have to go and find out for you. And then you go find that one. And that's, I think, the clearest thing is having these pillars, but then you get sucked down these rabbit holes of almost like higher levels of specialization. And you don't necessarily, I mean, I could say that I did that and I went down the strength and conditioning route, and I really work with general population females for the most part. So, but ultimately having that clarity, like, well, what do I need initially? And even you could say from a strength and conditioning standpoint, having a basic understanding of programming, a basic understanding of nutrition gives you the building blocks to build on.
Yeah, I agree. So that's actually a really good point that you've just made, that you did go down the rabbit hole with strength and conditioning. Did you ever try and take your business in that direction? Did you ever try and go down the purely strength and conditioning for maybe higher level athletes, whatever you want to call it? Did you ever try and do that? 'Cause one thing that I do see a lot of is people that I want to work with athletes, and I'm like, don't do, but like, but like the opportunities are slim to none. And obviously you've got the passion, and I see why you want to do it. But so did you ever actually try and go down that route?
So I went and did like a lot of the UK strength and conditioning workshops and assessments. And what I guess I'm going to say really ranty and bad, but like the UK SCA, they just want PhDs. They want a bunch of nerds. And when I was at the workshops, it might be different now, but when I was doing them, you'd start off with a room of, say, 30 people. And they'd be like, okay, now we're going to go do our plyometrics and change the direction. And half the room would suddenly be like, oh, yeah, I can't do that. And it was just a bunch of people that had the PhD and masters. I didn't get treated very well because didn't even have my degree. But I was there, I'd do the plyometrics. And there'd be the people that trained actually did the drills. Like we would learn how to do plyometrics, learn how to do acceleration drills. And then by the second day, half of those people have sat out as well. So now there's like, out of a room of 30, there's like 7 of us who are actually physically doing the job. So from a strength and conditioning standpoint, qualification, it's not the best in this country. From in terms of like, did I ever want to go down the application of it? So that always put like a bit of a, from going to a pro team, I was like, well, that's not the route. But what I ended up with, I always have some clients that not necessarily elite level athletes, but are competing in something that allows me to kind of scratch that itch.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
And that, I think, is why it allowed me to kind of, especially early on, I ended up working with a guy that was a free runner, like A-list celebrity stunt double. So I trained him. He trained like a bodybuilder.
Parkour type of calisthenic, that sort of stuff.
So he came from that background, but trained like a bodybuilder in the gym. I trained his girlfriend. And this goes back to like everyone saying, I want to work with celebrities. I want to work with athletes. And I would say, do you know them? Because unless you know them, or you can get in their inner circle, you're not training them. So I got this guy because I trained his girlfriend. And she said, oh, would you have a look at his training? And I said, yeah, it's shit. Let him train with me for a week and I would show him a different way. And because I did that, he trained with me for a week for free. I trained him 5 days a week for probably 3 years. But like in that time, he was Hawkeye stunt double, Ryan Reynolds stunt double, Michael Fassbender stunt double. Like he was in Assassin's Creed. I think he did like 13 different roles in Assassin's Creed. Like, you don't get that guy by them finding you. You have to be in
Yeah.
their inner circle. Like
Yeah.
their circle's tight, and you don't just walk into those things. But I had him; it allowed me to kind of train him like an athlete. I had other people that were, whether it's like marathon runners or like I have a lady that's a 2-time world champion powerlifter. Like I've got people that I can scratch that itch with, and that just gives me enough from a strength and conditioning standpoint. And then obviously I have predominantly general population clients, and that's what most people will have. You're kidding yourself if you think you're going to get a roster of elite athletes.
Yeah, and I think some people have just got to make that mistake themselves. Try it and find out, unfortunately, the hard way. So we're up to like 2012. So now talk to me about transitioning into online coaching, because obviously you've done more time even in person than probably most people have done in the industry at all. That at least the ones that are listening to this. So then you were obviously there through the age of online becoming a thing. How do you then go to translate? Because again, I don't have an extensive knowledge about strength and conditioning, but I know the sort of stuff that you do. I know the sort of stuff that you post. It's quite a lot of it is very technical. How do you then go translating that when you're not actually stood in front of the person anymore?
Yeah. So in terms of when I started, I think I started online in 2015. And that was purely because the guy that came in the gym, a guy called Alex, absolute nerd when it comes to nutrition. I think he used to work with Ben Coomber. Now he works with like the International Sports Nutrition. He's one of the lecturers. He came in and we got on well. We were chatting in the gym, and then he knew me from a training aspect. I knew him from a nutrition aspect. And he just approached me. He was like, do you want to start a business whereby I do nutrition, you do the training? And it's going to be all online, because Ben was online. And I was like, I never even knew it was a thing. I didn't even have an Instagram account at that point. And I don't think my Facebook, because I'd left it with prison service, you're not really supposed to have Facebook. So I think I had Facebook. I wasn't on Instagram. And he sort of said, oh, yeah, we'll run it this way. I've got this influencer that we can kind of work with initially, and it should get some clients rolling in. And then started in 2015, was online and in person, still working with people until 2018 when I moved up to the Northeast. And that's when I went fully online. So I've been fully online since 2018. But we kind of built our business that way. In terms of like the application, it's one of my, you hear a lot of people saying like you should do time on the gym floor before you go online. And I don't know how well that gets conveyed, in the sense like what people want you to do is they want you to collect one cue. Probably requires you to be able to tell that one cue 20 different ways.
Yeah.
But you have to know the person to be able to give them the right one, or have gone through that one cue with 5 different cueing techniques to get it to stick. You need that toolbox, and you only get that in person, or it's much harder to get it online. You can get it, but it's much harder. You need that input. And the reason you need that skill set is because when you do online, the difference between online and in person is in real time, and online is after the fact.
Yeah.
So I now have to be able to look at a video from my client. I have to know them well enough, phone conversations and message interaction, to then go into my toolbox, because I want them to get their lats tight in a deadlift, and go, what do I know about this person, and which cue will resonate with them enough that they can take what I message, audio, note, or anything else, it sticks in here, and then in a week's time, when they go in and do that session, it's here and they can use it, because I'm not there to tell it to them in person. And that's the hard thing, is that if you come off your personal training course, you might have one way to say that cue, and you now try and apply it to someone that is online, that you'd be like banging your head against the wall. You can keep saying that cue for the next 5 weeks and it might never take. But I've got this ability to, because of that toolbox of, God, nearly 20 years on the gym floor, to be go, okay, there's 10, 15 different ways I can tell you to get your lats tight in a deadlift. Some are humorous, some are inappropriate, some are accurate.
Yeah, and it's just knowing the person,
But depends on the person. I can give you that cue, and it's going to stick. And that's the difficult thing. And that's why most people say you should do in person first, is to build up that knowledge base, to build that real time. But also you need that real time feedback from training people in person as well. Like if you're writing programs, when I write a program, I look at the data. I can have weekly check-ins. I can have interaction with the client. nothing, and video feedback, but nothing will tell me whether it's an 8 out of 10 RPE and what it looks like for a set of 5 than being in person. And when they come and like, what they like by the end of the session, have they still got some juice to be able to like do the session well, or are they flagging after the third exercise? I don't get that feedback when doing online. So now I have to go almost like minimal effective dose. If I want to increase the volume, I've got to do it slowly. I've got to look at the data and see, okay, does lifts fall off when we're getting later in the workout, when I have expectations for what they should be able to lift? And I have to be a bit more data driven. And when you're in person, you can see like, okay, we're shutting this down after 2 sets because you're tired. So that's the tricky thing between that. So I had that skill set. I also had taught, the personal training course helped me massive amounts in terms of being able to convey what I'm trying to say to clients. And then the hardest thing for me, the transition, was just being online because I've been in person for so long. So I think in many ways the success came from it. We started fairly small with a group, and I was pretty diligent with what I was trying to do. But because I had so many years experience from in person, the only real change for me was that I wasn't getting real time feedback. So then I'm like, okay, well, how do I still need that, or I need something like that. Where do I get that from? And that has to come from whether it's, pre-exercise questionnaires, whether it comes from weekly check-ins, video feedback, weekly calls, whatever you do, you have to have something. Otherwise, it's just data, and data doesn't tell you anything.
How important do you think it is? And I'm going to put myself out to dry here. That when I was coaching people, like I said, I never had that much of an active passion in the exercise side of things. I was also working with average weight of people that were coming to me was 130-ish kg. So it was never going to be about mega serious and progressing themselves. So I didn't do a lot of that. Like I said, I'm going to hang myself out to dry. I didn't do a lot of that. How important do you think that is? And then follow-up question is, how do people go about implementing that when they are just coaching, I say just, but Gen Pop, fat loss clients online with no in-person element?
I think with yourself, because you were working with like people that weighed like 130 kilos, you can kind of get away with, as long as they're training, like we want the weight coming off. If they're able to maintain some muscle mass or gain some muscle mass, the likelihood is they're coming from some level. I mean, yourself came from American football, so you'd be different, but like most of them are coming from some level of inactivity. Mm-hmm. So most of the things you're going to give them are going to be successful. And in many ways, the primary need is the fat loss or the nutrition or whatever, mindset, whatever it comes with it is probably more important if we're looking at the hierarchy of it. So just having them generally active is probably enough. For a general population, you can say that to a degree. I think being generally fit gets you so far. I think you need to have some programming principles, and it can be as simple as progression. With who you're working with, just simple progressive overload and hitting the major movements is probably enough, and it's probably enough for most general population people. But I think in terms of being able to get some level of feedback, with the client base that you're working with, or if you're just working with fat loss clients, if you're looking at the hierarchy of importance, your nutritional feedback is probably going to be far more significant for you and for them to focus on than the training element. Now, you probably had some degree of feedback from a training element, and a lot of people will, but a lot of people with fat loss, they'll focus so much on the training stuff and then wonder why maybe they're not losing weight. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, are you and the client focused on the primary rock that is the one that needs to move? If my client, I've only got a limited amount of attention, my client's only got a limited amount of attention and focus. What moves the needle the most?
Yeah.
Nutrition does. So if we look at like most of my client check-ins, like nutrition's a small part of it. It's not that detailed because I don't work with a huge amount of nutrition clients, but also most of my clients for me from training. So if you look at the weekly check-in document, if you look at other things, it's heavily weighted towards the priority. If you've got more fat loss people, I would say, as long as you're still trying to get them, strength training, maintaining lean body mass, but you're putting all your, 80%, 70% of your focus on the nutrition side of things, you're probably in the right place. So you were doing the right thing for your clients. And especially if you've got general population, like, it can become really overwhelming and unnecessary to a degree if you're having them fill in, here's your nutritional check-in document, here's your strength training document. Yeah. And they're like, fuck off with it all. Like, this is just too much.
Yeah. I think it comes down to knowing your clients and knowing what you said it earlier, right at the, well, not right at the start, but fairly early into this podcast. It's figure out who you want to work with and what they need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be that simple. It could be that simple. And I think in many ways that, and you've done lots of stuff about like weekly check-ins and stuff like that, but you can overcomplicate it. Like, I used to insist on clients doing monthly calls, and I have a client she's very high up with Barclays Bank, and I have a few clients. You might have been the same. Like, I trust their opinion, so I said to her, "It's like, what's one thing I do that is unnecessary?"
Yeah,
she's like, monthly calls. We don't need them. You don't need them. I was like, cool. We don't do them no more.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me 20 hours back.
Exactly. But we think, okay, the client's going to want this. It's going to need this. And it's like, do they? And the reality is that your weekly check-in document, depending on what you do, probably doesn't need to be more than 5 to 8 questions.
Yeah, I agree. Mine was set. I talk about this regularly. I'm actually, obviously, at the time of recording on Friday, I've got my next in-person day with the Amplifier clients, and the entire morning is a workshop on crafting and perfecting your check-in process. And I give them my forms that I used to use and stuff like that. Mine was 7 questions long.
Yeah.
That's it. 7. And 4 of them were scales, 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like people overcomplicate it massively. Something that I was thinking about then when you were speaking is, so you did actually the first masterclass for my Amplifier Elite group, and it was fucking fantastic. Again, even somebody that's not coaching people anymore, I watched it and I was like, I wish I'd had this when I was coaching people, because some of the things that you were speaking about, again, to somebody that didn't have a massive training piece in my coaching, I was like, I wish I'd have known that then. Talk to me a little bit about, and something that had never kind of like dawned on me. Talk to me a little bit about, because you mentioned it in the training, and I never even considered it with like the different phases and stuff. Talk to me about the impact that training knowledge and programming knowledge can have on client retention.
I don't remember what I said now in the masterclass, but
it was along the lines of, obviously, if things are going well, you need to be able to program not just for the next 4 to 8 weeks. You need to know what cycles are coming. So,
yeah, I think you have to have a vision of where you're trying to take a client, and that could be a shared vision. Theirs might be short term, and which is fine. It might be just be 8 weeks down the road that they're thinking, but you probably want to be looking 16, 24, beyond that, so that you know where you're going to take them. And, it's good to be able to have those things in place, because, again, the client's journey might be, or their mindset might just be whether they want to squat a certain amount, whether they want to get to a certain weight. The whole focus is there. But if you can start building in next steps and showing them, and I think you might have done a post on this before, whereby it's like you can kind of keep your clients motivated by having this ability to go, okay, yeah, when we get you here, this will be a really good time for us to then start to focus on these. I had one girl wants to work on, I asked my clients for their goals for the year, and she wanted to do some weight loss, and then she wanted to work on chin-ups as well, was like another thing. And I was like, well, the best time to work on chin-ups is after your weight loss phase, because they're way easier to do that. So now I've already given her like the next goal. I think like weight loss was like till May. And I'm like, okay, so now we can get back into like building your strength at the new body weight, get the chin up working. So this was in January. I'm already building what your training is going to look like June onwards. And I think sometimes it could be very easy for us to either not have a plan or just to focus on, okay, I've got this client for 12 weeks. But if we can now start to build, what does that look like for the client after those 12 weeks? They can now envision themselves doing that. They can get excited about it. They can get excited by hitting their target weight, because it unlocks this new, it's a bit like playing a computer game. You do this and it unlocks the next level. Now I can get you to these pieces. I mentioned my friends Todd and Chris in the masterclass, and they do a great thing with their gym, and they have these different levels. that their clients, they come in for like strength classes, but I want to say there's like white, blue, yellow, black. And then like you have to hit all the levels in this. So if you come in with general goals, you've still got these targets that you can hit. And once you've hit the blue, I don't know which order it goes, but like if you hit the blue, go to yellow. When you get the black one, they give you like a personalized pair of Metcons, which is what some girl got recently. But then you also have to, you don't just like hit, I'm black scale. You have to hit that target when they retest to keep that level.
Yeah, nice.
So they keep clients interested. They created these things for clients. Now you can create them as more individualized.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gamify it. Like they've said, like you've got to hit, and there's some strength work, there's some body weight stuff, there's some conditioning work. But they're now looking long term. They get a client come in, they probably can't even hit the white standards. Well, now it's like, yeah, but you hit the white, you get to go to try and get the blue. So they've built, it could be 5 years.
Yeah.
But their client retention could be huge. And it's the same thing if you can start to plant seeds with your clients as you're going through them, like your initial 12-week sign up can now get extended to years.
Yeah.
Because you speak a lot about like, oh, you don't need to be motivated. And your argument against that, and it's like you can create motivation.
Yeah.
You just have to plant the right seeds to get them excited about the next step.
There's future pacing is something that I get everybody that does the Empire is something that I'm big on with them. And again, it's like I don't know why coaches don't do it already. On day one, start talking about where they could be in 18 months, not where they could be in their initial 3-month minimum term or whatever, however you want to structure your business, and reverse engineer it from that. Because what are they going to be more excited for? The thing that they can achieve in 90 days or the thing that they could potentially achieve in 18 months? That doesn't mean that you are having to get them to sign some sort of contract or stiff arming them into staying forever. Your service should do that. But definitely future pace it and work backwards. And it was, like I said, I'd never even, until I watched the masterclass that you did for the guys, I'd never even considered that programming itself has a massive part to play in that.
I think the big barrier there is that like, the clients sometimes can't see past. A lot of times it's like they come to you, especially with weight loss, you had like they don't like who they are.
Yeah.
And a transition away from that is all they want. They can't see past. They can't see the future because all they see is the present they don't like.
Yeah.
So you can start asking them those questions. You might not get great answers. You might not get any answers at all because they're just focused on, I'm overweight. I don't want to be this. I don't like what I see in the mirror. But now as they start to lose weight, you can start to unlock those conversations. So sometimes when people go, you try and talk about 18 months down the line and you get nothing back. And it's not because you're a crap coach or you're not asking the right questions. It's purely the fact the client can only see they don't want to be where they are right now. And you then have to and revisit them. I mean, a lot of clients, you ask them their goals and you just assume that you're still going on that path. But like if your client's consistency is starting to wane, if it's starting to, they're missing the odd session here and there, maybe they're not checking in like they used to, maybe they're not as regular with, some of the other pieces of information that you usually get. Why is that? Maybe they're now chasing a goal that was important to them that no longer is. Maybe something's changed. Maybe they just got fatigue from chasing that goal. I mean, it happens with weight loss. If someone's you had people weighing 130 kilos, losing that weight is not 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Losing that weight is 18 months, 2 years, 3 years. You get fatigued along the way. It's a long journey. And sometimes you just need to inject a new level of enthusiasm with that. It might be a diet break where they get to enjoy some food again and it's enough to keep them going. Maybe it's just like a side quest. That's how people keep you in the games. When you're playing these long computer games, you've got to have a side quest in there whereby it just keeps you interested enough to stay in the game.
That's exactly, to be fair, thinking about the way that you communicated it about the training phases is exactly what I used to do with dieting. It was, right, okay, well, let's sit together and let's map out what have you got coming up in the next 12 months. Well, we know Christmas is there and you're not fucking dieting them because I don't want you to diet then. Never mind about you. Have you got any holidays coming up? Are you away with the kids? Are you a parent that needs to be a little bit more chilled on half terms and stuff like that? And map it out. And then all of a sudden, something that is probably going to take 18 months no longer takes 18 months. It takes 6 lots of 3 months. Mm-hmm. And that's way more manageable mentally for the client than me going, you're 130 kilos. you've got to lose weight for the next 18 months. Fuck that. I wouldn't have done that. Like, I wouldn't have done that. And when I was 150 kilos, somebody said to me, it ended up being that way because of the pandemic and all that sort of stuff. And I did just blitz it through. But if somebody had said to me on day one, it will take you 2 years to get to where you want to be, which it did, I'd have checked, not a chance. Mapping it out definitely helped. You mentioned something, one of my favorite words, and it's a nice little segue, asking questions. So another reason that I wanted to get you on this is you were one of the first people to get qualified in the transformational coaching qualification that we both did way back whenever it was, 2022, I think it was, 2022 now. How do you implement and how do you tie in what I know as coaching, asking questions, not telling people what to do? How do you integrate that into a heavily programming and training-based service?
Yeah. I think before you even get to those things, like, you have to get to know the client first.
Yeah.
Because like the kind of the questions that we were given or learned through Paul's coaching academy, we were the first two to pay. We were trying to pay before the course was done. So I would hang my hat on that. We were the cleanest people ever. But
I told this story, and me and Paul were talking about it when I was last up there. I've been helping out with the intakes ever since. And last time I was there, I got Leslie and Paul to one side, and I've now managed to get one just for my clients. So there's going to be one that's not being marketed outwardly in October just for my clients, where they're coming up and we're going to do the whole 2-day thing. So I would love to know how much money that I've made, Paul, through that coaching academy. It's ridiculous. But yeah,
you've made a lot.
Yeah,
but I think
I'm telling you now, he's doing it at nearly half price. I'm like, you fucker.
Yeah. That's because we covered it. But ultimately, it all starts with like building a relationship with the client first, and then understanding them enough to know when to ask the really hard questions. It goes back, the point I made a moment ago, where someone doesn't, all they can focus on is they don't like who they are right now. You're never going to get a clear vision for the future. And often I might use questions that are just trying to lead them, almost like a gentle nudge towards either the conversation that we need to have or towards a bit of self-realization. And then there's times whereby we've kind of walked enough down this path and the harder question needs to be asked.
Yeah.
One of the ones from Paul's thing is like, who else has this impacted? When you ask someone beyond themselves, like, how have your actions impacted other people? It's a really hard question to ask someone. Especially I've worked with people that have like a eating disorder background, and there's a pattern there, and it's like that question is one of the hardest for them to answer. Yeah. But if you ask that on day one, you haven't earned the relationship to ask that question.
Yeah.
So there's ways that you can ask it, but ultimately I think you have to know the client well enough to know, a bit like the coaching cues, what question is going to land.
Yeah.
Either for self-realization or for us to open up a conversation about the thing we really need. Because as coaches, we often have an idea of like, okay, sometimes you unpack stuff, you're like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting that. But you kind of have an idea of like, you're avoiding this. We need to have this conversation, but like, you have to earn your way in. You can't just ask someone the hard questions and expect them to open up. You've got to put in some groundwork. You've got to be able to
you've got to
meet them where they are, show some understanding, so be able to build a level of rapport with them enough to ask those questions. So for me, I'll always interact with clients a lot of times just through messaging, but then you start to notice patterns. You start to notice like, okay, now we need to get on a call. And most of my clients know, and I think you might have said this, like when clients hear you say it's time for us to get on a call, they're like, shit. Like, the thing I've been avoiding, it's coming to a head now.
Yeah.
A lot of clients will tell me at the end of the calls, they're like, yeah, I was hiding. And I'm really glad that you made me get on this call. Because they think they'll either say they're letting yourself down, they feel like they're letting you down. So you're not letting me down, but you're hiding from admitting what you're doing. And I think you have to want to earn that respect and rapport. But then it's like your clients also need to know that it comes from a good place. and you might not like the questions they're going to ask. And I sometimes start the conversation with that. But yeah, my clients know that if we're getting on a call, something needs to be spoken about.
It's coming. Yeah. Again, it's a conversation I have regularly with people about like what I see, and this is just my kind of like view on things at the minute, is because everyone's like the coaching market's not saturated. It is, like, especially online. There's a lot of coaches out there. There's less good coaches, but there's a lot of coaches out there. I think there's this weird scarcity thing at the minute where coaches are scared to act in a certain way, say certain things, ask certain questions, put it on the clients when they need to, for fear of losing that client to another coach. But I say all the time, like, you might ask questions that piss your clients off, but sometimes you have to. Tell you what will piss them off even more: if you don't ask the question and it carries on for another 2 to 3 months and they waste the money and they don't make any progress. I'd rather have somebody feel uncomfortable for 20 minutes that we're on the phone together and then manage to kind of like turn a corner than me dance around the question because I'm too insecure to ask the question of my client. Like, think of it, I'm not the one answering it. Like, I've got the easy job. I've got the easy job is just asking it, but it is fascinating and of watching people kind of like, I think Instagram has got a lot to answer for in terms of like the negative things that can happen on it and social media, but it's enabling people now. It is accelerating people's knowledge and awareness, more importantly. I think a lot of coaches, I'm seeing it, and it is my echo chamber, that a lot of coaches nowadays are warming to this idea of, oh, sometimes I don't need to answer the question, sometimes I need to ask the question. I'm like, yeah, we're getting it.
Yeah, it becomes so. I get it. It happens a lot with new trainers, petrified of losing a client, and the reality is, like, it was going to happen at some point. Like, if that client's willing to leave when you ask them a challenging question, like, they were going at some point. Like, it's rare that they were just going to stay, and because you're just letting them do whatever they want. But I'll often tell clients, like, one of the hardest things about my job is saving you from yourself sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that's just from training. Like, I can see they're beating up, they're run down, they've got a load of other stuff, and I'm like, we're going to bring the sessions down this week. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Like, part of my job is stepping in and stopping you from harming yourself. And I think in many ways, coaches are scared to do that. They are, and I get it. Like, you don't want to lose income. Sometimes you're not in a position where you can to do that. But most of your clients will respect you more if you're willing to step in and have that hard conversation. Like, I have my client Katie. I swear every time I talk to her, and I mentor her as well, and I talk to her every 2 weeks. She cries every time. I'm not trying to make her cry, but I'll ask questions, and she opens up, and a lot of that brings up things that we had a conversation the other day. I didn't even know half of what she kind of brought up, but I'm not trying to bring her to tears, but sometimes she needs to let it out, and she's always thankful for those conversations. And coaches are afraid to do it, but again, it's easy for me to over 2 decades of experience, like yourself, you're not shy about coming forward. A lot of coaches, I mean, you obviously started in the industry, I want to say just before COVID.
So yeah, I took my first client on in 2020. So my first like one-to-one client. I'd been doing a bit of group stuff inside the business, but yeah, it was 2020.
But you have my confidence probably came from experience. Your confidence comes from you're fairly confident to approach people and have those uncomfortable conversations. And I think it just takes coaches some time, but like, they're not about to run out the door. And if they do, they were going anyway at some point. You've just fast-tracked that decision.
They were just waiting for the catalyst. The way that I kind of explain it to people is about this whole kind of like having difficult conversations is, I don't think, not through bad intentions, I don't think some coaches give their clients enough credit. Like, at this point, they've decided that they're going to work with you. So let's not avoid the fact that before that, they probably considered other people as well. So they've already sort out their options. They've decided that you're the person. They're paying you a probably not unsubstantial amount of money, and they're communicating with you. why do you think asking one question is going to be the thing that scares them off when they're already showing you in multiple ways that they want to make progress? Like this whole idea of blaming the clients and clients don't want it enough. I'm like, what the fuck are they paying you for then? Like it
That's the
makes no
problem with
sense.
coaches. They're like blaming it on the client. It's like, no, it's on you as the coach.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
to say, oh, the client doesn't want it enough. It's like, they wanted it enough to give you some money.
Yeah, and then again, same different side of the same coin of then saying, "Oh well, I don't want to ask my client that hard question," and I'm like, "Well, they're already showing you that they want you to ask the question by the fact that they're still here." So yeah. So now, last thing that I want to talk about, because this will be going out after it has been made public knowledge, Coaching Code Live event in August in Manchester. You are. I almost feel like this is some sort of big reveal. The email went out today telling people that we were having a workshop on programming. It's you that's doing it. Surprise. I've pretty much given you free reign of basically said there's going to be a room full of online coaches. You've got an hour. Do what the fuck you want. Like, what do you think people would get the most? Have you put any? This is not me kind of like grilling you live on a podcast.
I was going to say, you put me right on the spot.
No, yeah. We said we weren't going to plan this. Have you put any kind of thought to it? Do you know what sort of route you're going to? I'm sure whatever. Well, I know whatever it will be fantastic.
I'll be honest. I haven't thought a huge. I will probably expand on some of what I did with the masterclass around simplifying programming for general population. In many ways, I can look at reducing like the decisions that people need to make. I mean, I had some follow-up questions from the people that obviously watched the masterclass, and a lot of it is like some of them are already doing it, where they're just creating ways to simplify their decision process. And I had a conversation with a lady the other day, and so, well, I lay out like the methodologies that I'll use. So if I'm looking at different ways for intensification for strength, or different ways for accumulation of strength, I actually have a spreadsheet which tells me all those, because now I don't have to think about it. I can just look at those things. And I think having systems whereby your decision process is made a lot easier, and you can start to map out. And again, if we're looking at like mapping out a long client journey, if you've got systems, if you've got templates, if you've got other elements available to you that is there in front of you, you can start to map out that process rather than it just being, oh, we're going to try and do this 6 months away. Yeah. Well, now I can start to like add this framework and build that out. And even if like, there's always a detour whenever you do programming for someone. Like, there's always something that comes up that means we have to go off slightly. But if I know what it was supposed to be, I can detour and then try and bring it back to where I want it to be. So I think simplifying that for coaches, and coaches get so overwhelmed with programming. One, because, and I mentioned at the start of that masterclass, they don't have a system. They don't have a process for what they're doing. They sit down and look at a blank piece of paper each time. The people that do it successfully, they know their system, and they have frameworks within that system, so they know how to play around with it. They know how to drag and drop to be able to create what they want. And when you have that ability, when you have those things in place, it makes programming so much simple, so much faster. You know, you shouldn't be sitting down for 90 minutes to write a program. You should be able to knock it out pretty quickly. And if people think you're cheating when you do that, and it's like,
you said something in the video. Was it a 7-minute challenge or something? I think
6.
It was 7 minutes.
Yeah. That came from Chris and Todd, my friends over in the US. And it's like, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You should be able to sit down, and if I gave you a very general outlook, can you write in 6 minutes? Can you write out a 3-day per week training program? With just 1 week snapshot. And most people, like, if you tell them they got 6 minutes, they can't get past the first half of the first day. But like, if you've got a system whereby okay, on day 1, the power variation is going to be a bilateral one. On day 2, it's going to be an upper body power variation. On day 3, it's going to be a unilateral one. Well, if I have that system, that decision becomes easy. If I know that it's going to be a squat on day 1, a press on day 2, and a hinge on day 3, that's easy. If I know that I always go with an upper body pull and a lower body push, well, now I know what I'm pairing with the squat. I'm pairing it with an upper body pull. So my decision making becomes so much faster through that. You can do the same thing with core training, but like, if you understand how to build this out and you play around with that template. But if someone said to me, can you do it? I'm like, well, in here, I know where everything goes. Yeah. So I can do it in 6 minutes. But people don't have that. They sit down each time and go, okay, I need to reinvent the wheel for this client. How do I do that?
Yeah,
And
it was
they think it's
fascinating.
cheating to write things down, like, and have these things like, well, the client's coming to me for bespoke, individualized training. It's like they're still getting that. You can still work off a framework.
Yeah. It was fascinating. Like I said, I know I've said it already, but it was fascinating for me to watch it because there's stuff in there that I never would have considered at all. And I think that I would consider myself when I was coaching as like a standard online coach who'd got into the business, figured out who I wanted to work with, and just got started. So there was stuff in there that I'd definitely not considered. And like I said, the piecing it together, the bigger picture. I won't give too much away just in case it is what you're going to go over again at the event. But even like the table of different exercises, which can speed up the actual exercise selection, and it was fascinating. Like I said, and I've said a few times, it was fascinating to me that there's somebody that's not got an active passion into programming. I was like, fuck me, I want to write a program.
But it's like with the girl I mentioned did the fat loss, and then she wanted to go into the pull-up work. Well, while she's doing her fat loss phase, I'm having her do dead hangs. I'm having her do flexed arm hangs. I'm having her do hanging knee raises. All things that's going to improve her grip, improve her core position, and like neuromuscular like awareness in space. I don't want to do any eccentrics yet because her body weight would have probably made it too much on her bicep tendon and stuff like that. But now, because I've got this longer vision, I can start to plug in these little pieces that are beyond the weight loss goal, but they're the prep work that I need. It's the same if someone tells me they want to run a marathon. I got a girl who wants to run a Bath marathon next year. And like, okay, we'll start building in the little pieces we need to build up resiliency for running now. And then when you've got the time, because she's just finishing a PhD, I'm like, well, then we can get you running. So now I can get her doing the extensive plyos that I needed to do. I can get her doing some of the calf work. I can do that in because I know the future vision. I can start to build these things in at the end of a workout, and now we're good to go. I'm not wasting time whereby it's like, hey, now we transition, and now I've got to do 3 months of prep work before I get you into the body of the training. I've done the prep work in there. So it will probably be, again, very vague, put on the spot, but that's probably with likelihood is looking at long-term programming, but also like simplifying things to be able to just speed up the process, because so many people waste time with programming, like just taking too long.
I think, to be fair, yes, I know I put you on the spot, and I don't think that was vague at all. And I also think what I've said to all of the speakers that are going to be speaking there is that it needs to be stuff that people can implement. I don't want to fill a room with people and everybody just fucking knowledge, like, you know what I mean? For those of you that are listening and not watching, I just did the jizz thing, like just throwing a load of knowledge at people. I want people to actually be able to take it away straight away and go, right, okay, I'm going to fit this in here, and this is how it's going to improve things and make my programming and my client experience better. So one of the other things about the event is it's a pitch-free zone. I don't want to collect a load of people in a room and then just let everybody pitch, because I fucking hate it when people do that to me at events. But this is not a pitch-free zone. So final thing is, where can people find you? Plug whatever you want to plug, including, you mentioned earlier, and I purposely didn't ask you about it, mentoring other coaches. So Instagram, any other platforms, go wild, mate.
Yeah, Instagram's probably the easiest platform. It's _Adam Willis is the Instagram to find me. In terms of pitching, wow, I don't think I've ever asked to pitch on a podcast. Obviously, I work with one-to-one online clients. I have a female group training program as well. Typically, I work with people through training, but I do also work training and nutrition. I do have spaces on both of those things if people want to come and join. The group program is obviously a fairly low-end price point. It does have a week's free trial as well. So if you're a female that wants to look strong, athletic, feel good, perform good, it's a great program to be on. From a mentorship standpoint, I only ever work with usually 5 to 6 coaches at one time. Currently working with 3, so I do have 2 to 3 spots if the client wants to work with me. From that side of things, we do bi-weekly calls, and ultimately for me, I try and make that as individualized as possible, because all 3 of the coaches that I work with are on different journeys. So for me, it's about looking and reviewing at what do you currently do well, where are the gaps, and what can we work on to get you the way you want to be from that side of things. And sometimes it is it's coaching skill set, other times it's a business skill set, sometimes it's a bit of both. So there is opportunities there to work with if you want, and you can either reach out via Instagram's probably the easiest way if that's interesting for you.
You're awfully quiet about that.
Oh yeah, I'm incredibly quiet about it. So I would say at the moment I'm not in a position whereby I need to shout about it.
Right, I understand. Yeah,
it's probably like when I started doing it and I had enough interest. And yeah, for me, I'd rather work with someone long term in many ways rather than shouting about it and getting people that just want to do 3 months and disappear. So like the people I'm currently working with have been with me, I want to say close to 9 months. So yeah, for me, that's the reason why.
There's definitely, well, I see anyway. And again, I now have access to a lot of coaches and I work with a lot of coaches. There's definitely maybe not a gap in the market as such for the business stuff that's been done to death at the minute, but definitely about how to, all the stuff you just mentioned about programming, how to actually understand and learn that and then develop your own system and processes to implement within your clients and stuff like that. Again, I'm not going to try and convince you to do anything in the next 2 minutes of this podcast, but it's something that I know that I would have done when I was coaching for sure. So yeah, if you are listening to this, I call them normies, coach or normie, normal person, not a coach, right? So coach or not, and any of that Adam's just spoke about, go find him. Obviously, I'll make sure that his Instagram handle is in the whatever it is below the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever it is. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, mate. I am buzzing to see it going well for you. I'm also buzzing for the 30th of August to watch you talk in Manchester, because I think I know that people are going to take a lot from it just because I've already seen the online version, the masterclass version. So yeah,
I appreciate being on the podcast. Appreciate the offer for the speaking opportunity in August. It's going to be awesome.
And even if you don't like programming, just come and see how tall Adam is.
Yeah, come and feel short and have a photo of me and Lewis.
Nice one, mate.
Cheers, buddy.